Okay, welcome everybody to Laurel's Learning Lab Tuesday Zoom call. We talk about articles online and we discuss them and learn English by speaking. So today, instead of going to Engu, which we do a lot, or anything else, we're going to discuss a national person who was a very good influence in South Africa. And you might know who I'm talking about, Nelson Mandela. He is an awesome example of somebody that brought people together when there was very difficult sides, kind of like some countries today. I wish we had Nelson Mandela here in the US, but we don't. So we have the opportunity to read this article about him and his life. If you want to see historical yet documentary about his influence and what he did with a simple thing like rugby, watch the movie Invictus, Invictus, Invictus. And it is a great movie about how he brought people together after apartheid and after he got out of prison to bring them together through rugby, to show them the national identity they had as South Africans and not as black and white. So it's really an amazing movie. All right, let's see here. Let me go to the link. All right. Share my screen. Okay, this is on history.com. The day in history Nelson Mandela released from prison. So this was February 11th, 1990. And so I would like people to read, and then we can talk about the different words that you don't understand, if there are any. We'll talk about the different concepts that we see here, and there aren't any questions like normal. We'll work on those questions ourselves. So Nelson, your hand is raised. You may start. Why don't you do the first two paragraphs?
Okay. Nelson Mandela, leader
Nice
of the
name,
movement.
right?
Yeah. Nelson Mandela, leader of the movement to end South Africa's apartheid, is released from prison after 27 years on February 11, 1990. In 1994, Mandela, a lawyer, joined the African National Congress, NAC, the oldest black political organization in South Africa, where he became a leader in Johannesburg, winning the ANC in 1952. He became deputy national president of the ANC, advocating nonviolent resistance to apartheid, South Africa's institutionalized system of white supremacy and racial segregation. However, after the
Hello,
massacre, a
hello,
peaceful
sir.
black demonstration, shark.
Hello, sir.
Hello, we're reading right now. So you came after we started reading. So
Okay,
Alvi, nice to meet you. Just listen, and then if you want to read, you can take your turn, okay?
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'm gonna to continue.
Yeah.
While I was okay, he
In
became deputy.
1960?
Okay, I'm gonna. He became deputy national president of the ANC, advocating nonviolent resistance to apartheid, South Africa's institutionalized system to white supremacy and racial segregation. However, after the massacre of peaceful black demonstrators at Sharpersville in 1960, Nelson helped organize a paramilitary branch of the ANC to engage in guerrilla warfare against the white minority government.
Okay, great. We'll stop right there for a second. Welcome to the newcomers that didn't get to introduce themselves. We will stop taking people in about 5 minutes from now, so they're not missing too much. So what do you think of this so far? He is the leader of the movement to end South African apartheid. So first of all, what is apartheid?
Me, teacher?
Go ahead,
Apartheid.
Nelson.
Apartheid is some kind of system like all the black communities suffering in some other places like the United States or some other countries, I don't know, in Europe, like some kind of segregation, racism,
Yeah,
and
it is segregation.
yeah,
And there is racism involved. You're right.
just because, I don't know why in South Africa they call it apartheid.
Yeah, that's the only place they call it apartheid.
Uh-huh.
Let me see if I can just show you what this means. You guys can still see, right? Okay. Apartheid, apartness, in the language of Afrikaans, which is the white language, was a system of legislation that upheld segregationist policies against non-white citizens of South Africa. After the National Party gains power in South Africa in 1948, its all-white government immediately began enforcing existing policies of racial segregation. Under apartheid, non-white South Africans, a majority of the population, so a lot of them are Black, only a small minority were white, and yet they controlled the country, would be forced to live in separate areas from whites and use separate public facilities. Contact between the two groups would be limited. Despite strong and consistent opposition to apartheid within and outside of South Africa, its laws remained in effect for the better part of 50 years. In 1991, the government of President F.W. de Klerk began to repeal most of the legislation that provided the basis for apartheid. President de Klerk and activist Nelson Mandela would later win the Nobel Peace Prize for their work creating a new constitution for South Africa. So in the movie, what happened was he was released from prison in 1990, and all we see is that he is now president. So we know that de Klerk was there before, and now Nelson Mandela is coming in, and he has to bring the country together in a very, very difficult situation. Because a lot of the people used to hate each other, and now they have to work together. So it's a tough thing. All right, so 1961. Any other questions about this before we move on?
Madam, I have a question.
Yes.
When Nelson Mandela on the time during the apartheid condition, so and how many times he was in the jail? How many times he was in the jail?
He was in the jail for 27 years.
Wow. Or 27 years.
How many years?
27
Wow.
years. And
Wow.
so
Okay.
that was a long, long time. And what did he do while he was in jail? He studied the white Afrikaans people, and he understood what they were and how they operated. So when he came out of jail, he wasn't hateful, he was understanding, which is amazing.
Oh.
All right. And one thing I noticed, Nelson, that you said guerrilla, and it's in American English, we say gorilla.
Gorilla.
Gorilla. Yeah, just like the animal.
Yeah.
But you're right, it is. So guerrilla warfare is warfare where you can go anywhere and do anything. There's no rules. And so I guess, maybe it's, he had to approach it diplomatically, but I think he also approached it in other ways, because when diplomacy doesn't work, sometimes you have to use other methods to reach the people.
Another question, my teacher.
Yes.
What is the South African Constitution or the national constitution of the South African Parliament?
After apartheid?
No. Before apartheid.
Before apartheid, the Black people were suppressed and limited from getting good employment. They had to live in the bad parts of the town. They didn't have any education. Their children were not fed like the white children were in schools. There was a lot of systematic ways to bring them down. and the white children got fed. They had all the good opportunities, and it was very divided. You could tell the difference between the two.
And the white and blacks were become divided by themselves.
Oh, of course. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so anything else? Let's move on with our reading. So in 1961, who wants to read this? Gabriel? Is Gabriel still with us? Yes. Gabriel, do you want to read next?
Yes, I want to.
Go ahead.
From Mandela on. Mandela's
No, in 1961.
Okay. In 1961, he was arrested for treason, and although acquitted, he was arrested again in 1962 for illegally leaving the country. Convicted and sentenced.
That's right.
To 5 years at Robben Island prison. He was put on trial again in 1964 on charges of sabotage.
That's right.
In June 1964, he was convicted along with several other ANC leaders and sentenced to life in prison.
Yes. So we won't go into this, but if you guys want to, I can put the link in the chat, and you can always look at the link here about the harsh reality of life under apartheid in South Africa.
Madam,
yes.
Can I read the passage myself? Can I read the passage?
Yes, that's what I'm going to do. Is I'm going to put the link in the chat. So then
no,
that way
I want to read it now. I want to read it now. Oh, you would like to read the next part? Sure, no problem. Okay,
I'll put the link in after. Okay, go ahead with Mandela.
Okay. Mandela spent the first 18 of his 27 years in jail at the brutal Robben Island prison. Confined to a small cell without a bed or plumbing, he was forced to do hard labor in a quarry. He could write and receive a letter once every 6 months, and once a year he was allowed to meet with a visitor for 30 minutes. However, Mandela's resolve remained unbroken, and while remaining the symbolic leader of the anti-apartheid movement, he led a movement of civil disobedience at the prison that coerced South African officials into drastically improving conditions on Robben Island. He was later moved to another location where he lived under house arrest.
Okay, great. Albie, you did well. I know you have your accent and all that. What accent do you have?
I usually use the accent of the British accent.
Okay. And what country do you live in?
Now I'm living in Bangladesh.
Okay, that's fine. So I heard it, but I can still understand most of your words. And that's what I tell people. You don't have to have a perfect accent. You just have to be understood. So if I hear...
I'm practicing myself. I'm practicing.
Yes, you are. And you're doing well. So, okay. So let's talk about this. The 2 paragraphs that we just read. So in 1961, he was arrested for treason and he was acquitted, which means he was let off. He was found innocent, but then he was arrested again in 1962 for illegally leaving the country. So then he was convicted and sentenced to 5 years at Robben Island Prison. And he had charges of sabotage in 1964. So this is not something that he did once and decided, okay, it's not worth it. If something is worth it, like equality, like women's equality for the vote, or blacks equality for the vote later on, or things like that. It is worth fighting for. And so he kept saying to them, no, I'm not letting this go. I'm going to continue to fight for the rights of Black people. And he kept doing things that got him in jail. He didn't care. He was determined to change the system. So even though the government didn't understand what he was doing and they didn't like what he was doing, they said he was sabotaging, which means ruining or, taking action against them. He kept doing it. And in 1964, he was convicted along with his several other leaders and sentenced to life in prison. That is not something you want. But of course, he didn't stay there his whole life, which is good. The first 18 years, he stayed in Robben Island prison. And this is what was in the movie. It showed the small cell that he was in, and he only had one window to look out of. He had a very small bed. There was no, there was a bed. There wasn't a bed, and there was no plumbing. So I don't know where he went to the bathroom or what he did to sleep or any of those things. And then there was a quarry down below, which is a place where you rocks, okay? You dig rocks all day long. And he had very, very limited contact with people and so on. So this could have broken him. Many people will be broken by this kind of treatment. Your spirit will be broken, but he was not, okay? He kept saying, I'm going to do this. I'm going to live through this. I am the captain of my soul. That is the poem that there was about this. And I can show it to you guys after. It's a beautiful poem. So he was still the symbolic leader of this anti-apartment movement. And he led civil disobedience in the prison. So what is civil disobedience? Anybody know?
Madam, I can tell.
Okay.
Disobedience means when a person or when anyone is not obedient to anyone. When anyone is not obedient to anyone.
Yes, so you don't follow the rules.
Yeah,
but you
it's
don't
not
do it violently. You just do it like with signs and protests and things like that. So that's disobedience. That's right.
It's not disobedience. It means that it's not obedient to the government.
Right.
Policy.
The government tells you not to do something and you do it anyway because you think it's right. You think the government is wrong. So civil disobedience means that you don't hurt people. You're not violent. You're civil. You're peaceful, but you are still disobedient. Okay, so it's a way to show people what you think without being violent. And it's something you have to do sometimes, I suppose. All right. Anything else? What do you guys think? Any comments on this? Is civil disobedience effective sometimes?
Madam, what is the meaning of the Robben Island? In this island, where is this is located? The Robben Island.
I believe it's in South Africa. It's not, but it's an island off the coast of South Africa. And so he was away from, everybody he knew. He was with a bunch of other criminals, and but he was able to maintain his dignity and his sanity, even on this island, away from everybody else and bad conditions. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Coerced. Good question. Coerced means to be forced to. So they actually forced the officials to make the conditions better, which is an amazing thing.
Madam, is coerced and emphasized is the synonym? Is the coerced and emphasized is the synonym words?
And emphasized?
Yeah.
No, emphasized is not a synonym of coerced. Emphasized is to make something strong. Like if I emphasize a vowel or a consonant in a word, then I emphasize my words. That's a different thing than coerced, which is when you're forced to do something.
Do something. Okay. Thank you.
Nelson?
The pronunciation is coerced.
Coerced. Coerced. Yeah, so it's almost like a W sound. Coerced. Coerced.
Coerced.
Coerced.
Yeah.
Coerced.
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 That's right.
Coerced.
So the second syllable is emphasized, is stressed.
Okay.
Okay, Freydun, you have a question?
Aquí no, acá todo se mira, mira.
No? Okay.
Quita la tapa de ahí.
No, madam, I have no question. Okay. You
Okay,
can
that's fine.
scroll the page. You can scroll the page.
Okay, great, thanks. All right, let's move on to the next part. In 1989, who wants to read this part that hasn't read yet?
Teacher.
Let's see. All right, Nelson, go ahead.
Okay. In 1989, F.W. de Klerk became South African president and set about dismantling apartheid. De Klerk lifted the ban on ANC suspended executions, and in February 1990 ordered the release of Nelson Mandela.
Very good. All right, so in 1989, de Klerk became the president and he started working to dismantle, to take apart, to stop apartheid. And he ordered the release of Nelson. And then that's when they started putting into motion for him to become president. Who wants to read next?
I want to read next.
Okay, go ahead.
Mandela subsequently led the ANC in its negotiations with the minority government for an end to apartheid and the establishment of a multiracial government. In 1993, Mandela and de Klerk were jointly awarded the Nobel Peace Prize.
Good.
1 year later, the ANC won an electoral majority in the country's first free elections, and Mandela was elected South Africa's president.
Good. All right, so he won an electoral majority. You guys want to try that phrase? Won an electoral majority.
Like the United States in Electoral College.
Yes, exactly. And so when you have an yeah, I don't know if they have an electoral college there. They probably did if it says so.
Something the same as, you know.
Right. So first free elections in the country's first free election. So this is the first time that they were allowed to vote for this president. So it's an amazing thing when a country is not free to vote and then they are, people will come out and exercise their right to vote. So last paragraph, Gabriel.
Mandela retired from politics in 1999, but remained a global advocate for peace and social justice until his death in December 2013.
Good. So we say both 2013 and 2013. Either one is right. What,
Great.
Nelson?
Politics.
Yes, politics. And then advocate. So if it's a noun, it's advocate. And if it's a verb, it's advocate. Okay. Let's see. Let's talk about this. Any other comments you have about this turn of events. Now is where you have to think about it. What effect did this have on the country? I think the fact that they were able to end apartheid, it didn't happen immediately. It happened over a period of years. You know, the thoughts and minds of people, you can't control those. You can't legislate those. I know in America, when we institute some law, you can say this is the law, but it doesn't happen immediately. It happens over time in people's hearts and minds. You don't change your thoughts about somebody who's oppressed you until all of a sudden you like them. You know, you have to really like let it in your heart. Forgiveness is part of it. And that's what Nelson said in the movie. He said to the man that he was working with, he had white guards. He's like, these men were trying to kill me before and now they're guarding me. How is that supposed to work? He's like, well, you have to start forgiving. They are not the ones who were hurting you. You need to trust them and they need to trust you, and we need to work together. So, and then the soccer player, I mean, the rugby player was played by Matt Damon, the head of the team, the captain. And he had to trust that this was bigger than just him. He had to understand that they were fighting for their country. They were fighting for South Africa, and not just for their team, not just for the white people. They were fighting, representing the Black people too, to other countries. So it takes a long time to sometimes get over this fear or this prejudice that you have against somebody, but we have to do it to have a global world and have peace together. So what did they win in 1993?
The Nobel
Nelson?
Prize.
The Nobel Prize.
The Nobel
Exactly.
Prize.
The Nobel Peace
The Nobel
Prize.
Peace Prize.
Exactly. So what is the Nobel Peace Prize? Does anybody know?
Eh,
It is given by the name of Alfred Nobel, and the Nobel Peace Prize is very, very much respectable and honorable prize in the world.
That's right. That's right, Alvi. You're exactly right. And so 1 year later, the ANC won an electoral majority in the country's first free election, and Mandela was elected. Probably by mostly Black people, but some of the whites had to vote yes too. And so that's how he was elected. And then they had to start the job of reconciling the country together. So he was probably in politics. He was probably, I don't know for sure, but I know he was elected president. And then he was there for, you know, I think even after he was retired, he still stayed, you know, in the country as a global advocate. But he really changed things. And he was amazing how he negotiated with everybody to help them be peaceful with each other. And then he died in 2013. So he was older when he was elected. He had gray hair when he was elected president. So he was not a young man. Obviously, he was in prison for 27 years. So when he got out, then he was president. Any other comments? Any other things you want to say?
Teacher,
Yes.
I'm gonna add some things like you said, and this kind of stories is not some kind of easy, for anyone. You know, um, to be in prison for so many years, and when he was released from prison, and he won the presidency of South Africa, he gave an opportunity to work in his government to the commander in chief who put him in jail. It's not kind of easy decision. It's
Right.
not for everyone, not even in these modern times. This remember me like when the last time when I was in English Academy in 2013, I made a presentation for Martin Luther King, and this is
Exactly.
some kind of almost the same. And I used to talk so many things about Martin Luther King, and this is kind of similar, because they suffered a lot for so many years. they were suffering for not just for racism, but for segregation. Even the white people in South Africa, they just were about 5% or 7%, but they have um, the dominion,
Majority.
the authority for all the country, and all the black people, they were suffering a lot. They don't have any rights. They don't have a right to vote. Like it was happening in Baltimore with the case Martin Luther King. I think it was, I don't remember, I think it's Mississippi. I think
Mhm.
they had about 40% of black community, and only about 2% of black people were enrolled with the right to vote. That was happening almost the same in South Africa, But now after Nelson Mandela, everything was changing and everything was different. It's a good example for the world and for the planet.
Yes, I
You
agree.
know,
It's a good comparison. Martin Luther King and Nelson Mandela. They
yeah,
both were fighting for freedom in a big way. And even though Martin Luther King did not become president, he was still a very, very big hero for justice and freedom.
and
And
justice and the
so,
wave.
do you remember Martin Luther King's speech? I have a dream
I have a
that
dream.
black and white will be walking together and holding hands and all those things. I think that's an amazing example. Some people don't believe, that he had such a big effect, or they don't believe that, I think some people were scared of him though, because they shot him and he died, right? And
Yeah,
that was very sad. And I don't think Nelson Mandela was ever death threats or killed. I think he died long, happy, had a long, happy life and died on his own. But he was definitely in prison for a long time and went through a lot of rough treatment. So I don't know if that's any better, but I know that you have to put your um, priority into what is the most important. If you are one of those people that wants to make a change, then you have to risk all these things. And we just saw another good movie, and you guys might not want to see it, but it's always a good thing to see all these victorious movies that I like. This one is called Suffragette, and this was about when women earned the right to vote. And it took a long, long, long time. 50 years they tried peacefully to go through the governmental channels, and men would always laugh at them and they would say, no, we don't want women to vote. They're not equal to us. But then the women just said, okay, fine, we're going to not only do civil disobedience, but we're going to do real disobedience. And this was in Britain. This was not in America, this movie. And what they did was they did a lot of destruction and vandalism to get the attention of the government. And they actually went to prison, and they came out and they did things again, and they went to prison, and they really took a stand. And they finally got this law passed, but it took a long time and it was not easy. And so if you believe in something that much, now I'm not saying any of us should do this. I'm just saying in the past, when you shouldn't take for granted what we have. And what you have today is a result of people fighting for this in the past.
teacher.
Yes,
This gentleman, Nelson Mandela, applied the phrase like I think nobody else has done the same. Like Mahatma Gandhi said, if you want to see the change, you have to be the change.
exactly.
Something
I
like
love
that,
that phrase.
Yeah, if you want to see the change in the world, be the change first,
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Yep. Very, very true. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing. And any last words before we wrap up today? This has been a great discussion.
I want to tell I have enjoyed the class a lot, and with you and with all of you guys. And I think that in the at next we will have a very good class and very good enjoyment in this class in another class. And today's lecture was very much amazing to me. And I like the today's lecture of the lecture sheet of about Nelson Mandela, the great leader of South Africa, and who who works against the apartheid and others also. So I love to I'm very much I'm very much interested to attend the class today. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Glad to have you here, Albi. See you next time. Anyone else have any last comments? Chris?
Thank you so much, teacher, for giving me a chance to join your meeting. This is my
Yes.
first day again to join you because I'm so busy, teacher, to my work and also my studies. And thank you so much for having a time for you. Thank you, guys.
Yes, of course. I'm glad you came here every Tuesday at noon. That's what I'm doing it. So if you can come again, come again. I would love to have you.
Yes, teacher. Thank you so much.
Yes. Anyone else?
You want to say thank you as well. Always good
Thank you.
to be
All
here.
right. I'm glad to have you here, Gabriel, as always. Okay. Bye, Fredoon. Bye, Debbie. Bye, Sabri. You guys have a wonderful day, and
Have a nice
I'll see you
day.
next time.
Have a nice
All
day.
right. Bye-bye.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye bye. Thank you.